Welcome to Momentum Magnet, a podcast to inspire your growth. I'm Karen Morales, and your host in helping you find ways to make positive changes for your business, health, relationships, and life. We always have a path to a happier ending, so let's get started today. Good afternoon, and welcome to Momentum Magnet. Every week, we are here on Fridays to give you strategies of how to create momentum in your life, work, and business. In today's episode, we are talking to Dr. Steve Zivich, otherwise known as Dr. Steve to all of his patients. And in today's show, we're really going to dive deep into functional medicine, how you can keep yourself healthy in this interesting time, and talk a little bit about some of the holistic ways you can support yourself to find better health and wellness. Dr. Steve is founder of a direct primary care or concierge medicine practice in Boston. He practices many different types of performance-based medicine, preventative health management, and lifestyle care. He specializes in the management of chronic illnesses, including HIV, metabolic diseases such as diabetes and obesity, and sports-related industries. He offers a wide variety of services to the community, focusing on the LGBTQ community, of which he is a proud member. And one of the things I especially want to dive deep on with Dr. Steve today is that he has a great philosophy and some really interesting strategies on how to get into your peak shape even during quarantine. After trying every fad diet out there and still struggling with his weight well into his 20s, Steve became a nutritional advocate, and I'll even go as far as calling him an icon. He's both medical practitioner, but he's also a brilliant nutritional helper and guidance seeker for so many people that go to him when they just can't break through one of those plateaus. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Dr. Steve to today's show. And we are going to dive deep into how to be in your best shape and stay healthy this season. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Great, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you today. It feels like, this has really been a week where the entire nation has been talking about how to stay healthy and stay well.
Yeah, it's often on the topic of many people's minds, and even now during various aspects with the COVID pandemic, just trying to optimize health and wellness and try to find a normalcy in everything is quite the challenge, and any sort of advice and guidance is much appreciated.
So I love your background. You have had such a varied practice history, and I thought one of the places we could start, since you do this really neat way in your practice of bridging traditional Western medicine and also offering the more holistic functional medicine. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey to become a physician and how you ended up running a concierge and functional medicine clinic in Boston.
Yeah, so I wish I had one of those stories in which said that I, grew up always wanting to be a doctor, was always a science nerd, enjoying the biology classes, the math, quite the bookworm, and excelled in it and kind of fell into it through college and then eventually medical school. Knowing that I enjoyed understanding how the body functions and dysfunctions and how to pick together all the puzzle pieces to figure out how to find what's the underlying issues and put things together. I ended up going through training at Virginia Commonwealth University in Virginia, and then got family medicine residency in Drexel, where still a board certified family medicine doc. and love the idea of working with patients on a collaborative effort in the outpatient setting, really trying to prevent disease. And, there was an awesome job opportunity at a community health center working with patients with HIV and the LGBT community. So it was a no-brainer to come up to Boston. Despite really enjoying the face-to-face interactions, those 5-minute visits really felt disheartening. Not really sure how to provide the care that patients deserve with the limitations that the insurance-based system really pretty much mandates. So, about a year, 18 months into it was a little bit too early for me to think about retirement.
Probably a bit too soon.
So I was just trying to figure out what can I do with the degree if or did I make a mistake and went into medicine rashly without really having a better idea of what medicine is. And really lucked out. There was a doc up in Marblehead, Jeff Gold, who was opened my eyes to the direct primary care practice, where it really does something stupid by putting the focus back on patients, which is a novel idea for medicine. Where you get to work directly with the consumer, and by bypassing the insurance system, you really get to have a lot more autonomy and control in the style in which you get to practice medicine.
Let's give a pause there, because there may be some people across the country who are not as familiar with these concierge medicine practices that are very common in some of the largest metro markets in the United States. So if I understand correctly, it works where you pay a membership fee to join the practice, and you have almost unlimited access to the physician, in your case, you, who's available to your membership patients almost 24/7. Can you talk a little bit more about how this works?
Yeah. So the patients pay me directly in a direct to consumer. It's almost like Netflix for primary care, where the flat fee, which varies a bit from practice to practice. A lot of the direct care docs are independent, and it includes all the communication between visits, whether patients are texting, calling, using patient portal messages, coordinating care, office visits. Most medical procedures that are done in the office are often provided for free. Like for my patients, they get their EKGs if they needed stitches, setting bones, stopping nosebleeds, removing lesions concerned for skin cancer. Pretty much about 90 to 95% of stuff that anyone would need through their medical care can be done by their, the primary care doc if they have this direct contract.
Yeah, that's amazing. What it really allows for the patient, right, is that they have, better access. I know what you mentioned at the beginning of this episode was really the thing that burnt you out when you moved to Boston to work at the clinic. And it was an experience we had yesterday when I took my son to a pediatrician visit. It was the in and out kind of methodology in some of these appointment settings where you kind of ask yourself the question of, wow, we're probably going to wait until it's a real crisis to totally pay attention, which can be hard in medicine.
Yeah, and it's and why should we have to wait until something's broken when when you could put forth a lot less effort and attention in preventing badness to ensue?
Agreed. Yeah, that is so beautiful. So as you've stewarded your practice through what is arguably our most medically complex year, right, in the history of any of our lives. Can you talk a little bit about the impact of COVID on your patient base and maybe some of your observations as a physician, looking at it from this kind of hybrid East meets West philosophy?
Yeah. So, well, I guess first in regards to access, to getting a hold of a doctor, the cool thing with with direct primary care was been able to provide telemedicine for almost 3 years, well before it became cool with COVID, and along with all the other direct care docs. So it was a seamless transition. Patients able to set basically FaceTime visits when they felt more comfortable getting access. So there was no interruption to management of chronic diseases or getting access to sick care during this pandemic for my patient panel, as well as pretty much any of the other direct care docs that I'm familiar with, which was pretty awesome for that. And in addition, with the kind of lower volume, there's no, for the face-to-face visits, there's no wait, there's no waiting room, there's no being crowded with a bunch of other potential people, which makes people feel a bit more comfortable getting access to care. And as with the more flexibility in providing care, I've spent a lot of time focusing on the sleep, stress management, nutrition, and exercise as it pertains to disease modifications. And for a lot of the patients, they really much enjoyed or value the opportunity to talk about things to optimize their immune health, so that in the event if they get sick, whether it be with the flu, the common cold, or corona, or diabetes, or whatever, that they have the more than just a prescription to fix a problem, that they can do things to help prevent.
That's really interesting. Do you have any, I know we are not giving medical advice, so I'll give the legal disclaimer. I mean, although you are a physician, so I guess you do have the ability to give medical advice. But if people are listening today and they're worried as we're walking towards flu season, are there some techniques or tips or even supplements that you suggest people take to sort of help their immune system be in peak shape for the winter season?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the most important things is actually sleep management. I think we've all gone through periods in our lives in which we've been a little bit sleep deprived, whether it be for work, stress, family, whatever. And I mean, I've noticed during residency, when working long hours, that I got more run down. I got sick. And when I got the cold, I was more ill than when I had better quality sleep. There's a lot that happens to the human body for rest and recovery, and just health maintenance, just with a good night's sleep. So a lot of the times in the office visits, I spend a good amount of time talking about, what are the sleep issues? What are the things we can do to optimize sleep, whether this be reducing stress and cortisol levels, trying to optimize the environment for sleep, providing a cooler temperature room, or just really whether there's a role for supplement for improving sleep.
Question there. Dr. Steve, is there a temperature that everybody should be sleeping at in their rooms?
So there's a wide array of studies that look at cooler temperatures seem to improve the quality of the sleep. Somewhere in the 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit steered to, based on your comfort level. That being said, in the winter months, sleeping in a 64-degree room may just be, torture. But a cooler temperature, making sure that the the room is dark, that's putting away electronic devices an hour, hour and a half before sleep are all things that can, make some big changes for improving the immune health and just health in general.
That's really interesting. And then you talked a little bit about supplements to help with sleep at night. Is that something like melatonin or magnesium, or what do you suggest?
Yeah. So if someone had, there's a lot of array of various sleep issues. Melatonin is it's a hormone that has its own natural circadian rhythm where it peaks and drops at various times throughout the day. And some people do have a melatonin deficiency in which taking a melatonin supplement can be helpful. However, not every sleep issue is related to melatonin. If someone has more of a stress-related underlying issue for sleep, sometimes throwing in a magnesium supplement like magnesium glycinates or taurine, a phosphatidylserine can be another helpful supplement. And it really comes down to looking at the underlying issue. That being said, with the supplements, they can have some adverse reactions and should be taken as a case-by-case basis to ensure that, one, it's going to be effective for the individual, but two, that there's nothing to worry about by adding that supplement.
That's interesting. We've heard a lot over the course of the last 9 months around COVID. And I know at the very beginning of the pandemic, I would say March or April time period, I heard a lot about vitamin C, particularly coming out of some studies happening in the Chinese hospitals. And then lately, in the last week or two, listening to Trump's medical team talk about the supplements that he was on, we heard about vitamin D and a few other things. Is there sort of a vitamin cocktail that most physicians are recommending to prevent COVID or to help treat it if you were to develop symptoms?
There is a handful of supplements that has shown to help improve the immune health as it relates to fighting viral infections like COVID. And, it's still there's still a good amount of unknowns as it relates to COVID, but at least what it looks like is the higher dose vitamin A, vitamin D, zinc supplementation, some N-acetylcysteine, are a few that have been helpful for boosting the immune system and helping with for people with kind of mild symptoms. There has been some really interesting outcomes and positive outcomes for individuals in the hospital that are rather ill with COVID with high dose IV vitamin C. Which I think those clinical trials are still ongoing, but it is looking promising, which is kind of cool that they're looking at not just the expensive medications like Gilead's remdesivir or the immunotherapy, but a vitamin C for treating individuals with that are in the ICU with COVID. And who knows? It's still early, but it does look promising for the vitamin C. But for my patients in the outpatient setting, usually recommend a higher dose vitamin A, vitamin D, some zinc, usually a moderate dose of vitamin C, and then some N-acetylcysteine. And I've taken it myself when I've gotten like a regular head cold or even the flu for previous years. And it may not completely eliminate symptoms, but it definitely shortens the duration.
That's interesting. And I do think, especially in this year, right, we all need to be looking for the hidden silver linings on how what has been a global crisis could really add some value or move us along in areas of our life. And I agree with you. I thought it was beautifully different to actually see some of these vitamin treatments be talked about more widely in the news and by reputable sources to give people that idea that there are potentially things that we can be doing in our everyday lives to help keep our bodies in tip-top health. And I thought that's maybe a positive about what's come out of this year.
Absolutely. It really has open communication and facilitated communication between health experts on looking for not necessarily novel, vitamins and herbal supplements have been utilized for centuries in other cultures, but really diving deep into looking at the mechanisms and keeping a more open mind. Given everything that's been going on with this the COVID crisis, that it really has forced individuals to take a step back, open their minds for what they would have previously just shut down immediately.
Well, that answers the first question that I was asked most often in preparation for this episode. I have two more that came up multiple times. People wanted Dr. Steve's opinion on two other issues. The first being, Dr. Steve, did a lot of people get COVID weight gain? And if they did, how do they handle it?
Yeah, you heard of the freshman 15. I think everyone was going for the COVID-19, including myself. At the beginning of the pandemic, one not knowing how long this was going to last and needing to just manage the stress. A lot of people, itself included, got really good at baking and indulging in various things and exercising less with the gyms being closed.
Oh, I hear you. We made French macaroons. Those things take about 3.5 to 4 hours. I don't even like making brownie mix. Like I was making things that never have I ever purchased in my life. I bought a pasta maker. It's
absolutely delicious and damaging, and it's
So you're telling me I'm not alone in the
not
COVID?
Alone. I got really good at making pie crust and made a pound cake from just random stuff that was in the apartments, despite all the flour shortages from the grocery stores. And we can get into talking about creative baking in the future, but I think after people realized that this was not sustainable, and that even though that with Zoom meetings, people weren't needing to wear pants, pants were no longer fitting, that needed to make some changes. I think for most people, the first step for deciding to work on weight management goals is really understanding why this goal is important to you. Because no matter, you can do a quick fad diet detox and drop 10, 15 pounds. But then once that 2 to 4 weeks is up and you go back to your regular habits, the weight just comes back twice as fast. And, I think the goal for a lot of people is not just to lose the weight, check the box and gain it back, but to lose it and keep it off.
So I think I'm also hearing from you, which I think is important for people to know. And I want to stop here and say you yourself had struggled with weight in your earlier 20s, and you had become a bodybuilder, right? A fitness model, someone who was getting in peak shape and performing. And what I'm hearing you say is that a lot of people slip during this time of pandemic. And even people who have made peace with their body and had gotten to peak shape also faltered. So I'm hearing first, give yourselves permission and allow a little bit of compassion that this happened to folks who maybe were in great shape and had taken care of this issue. And so the first step is sort of reorienting yourself back to a goal.
Absolutely. After the last bodybuilding show was not that far off, but with the like many others, the stress related to this shared traumatic experience. I think I put on like about 20 to 25 pounds during the pandemic, which was quite impressive how quickly that happens without really noticing. It's a problem why, a scrub stretching. The first step, at least for myself, and what works with a little bit of patience is one, just not beating yourself up about it, and then really deciding, what were my goals? What are your goals for weight maintenance, and why is that important? Whether this be, any sort of life change. Or anything in life. Like if you want to work towards something, nothing is going to be 100% easy. You're going to run into hurdles, and you're going to have some delayed gratification. And understanding why a goal is important is going to allow for more consistency, and I think overall an opportunity to enjoy the process versus just kind of struggle through it.
That's really beautiful. So if people are listening and they're saying, heck yeah, that's me, and they know that they have a clear idea, they want to come out of quarantine that seems to be continuing much longer than any of us previously may have thought, and they have that goal in mind, what are the next couple of things that they need to do?
For weight maintenance, I think the first step is to lay a really solid foundation nutritionally. And there's an obscene amount of diets out there and targeted ads on whether it be the intermittent fasting, the Whole30, South Beach diets, ketogenic diet, paleo, and such forth. What is really cool about it is when you get into a caloric deficit, it doesn't really matter what diet you end up choosing. They all end up leading to the same results. As long as you're consistent, and as long as you remain in that caloric deficit, you're going to get to your goals. So it really comes down to what diet is the most comfortable for you.
Wow. So you are saying as a medical professional that there really isn't a one hit wonder for everyone, right? It takes understanding how you operate and what feels easiest to stick with, and that's your plan.
Absolutely. But there, on the side of your goal, if you have different goals, the various diets can play a role medically. There's advantages for someone with that might be pre-diabetic or diabetic with going with a lower carbohydrate ketogenic diet, or there are some people with metabolic diseases in which intermittent fasting can be potentially beneficial. But as an overall for weight maintenance, the type of diet doesn't matter as long as you are in a caloric deficit.
That's really interesting. Okay. Well, that's helpful to know. So the other piece would be exercise. So if we're
for exercise, for depending upon where an individual is, just finding some sort of movement practice is beneficial. If you have been on the couch catching up on every episode on Netflix, just getting up and moving and going for a walk is going to be extremely beneficial. But for the biggest bang for your buck, for losing body fat and doing body recomposition, it's going to be weight training. And granted, I may have a bit of a bias if, that being something where I enjoy doing, but for physiologically, the more muscle an individual has, the higher their metabolic rates, which is how many calories your body burns. So if you have more muscle, you're going to burn more calories and therefore more fat. And I think there's been a lot of previous information that for me to lose my belly, I need to go on the elliptical or go on the treadmill or go for a run for many, many, many hours. When in fact, if you would, push yourself doing some weight training and get that lean muscle, your body's going to burn more calories in the long run, and you'll get to that slimmer, more toned physique. I think a lot of people are scared of lifting weights, whether it be, concerned that if they want a more toned, lean look, that if they lift weights, they're going to turn into this big, bulky bodybuilder. I know plenty of guys that are busting their, every day in and out, purposely consuming excessive calories and going for personal records of lifting weights that are struggling just to gain a pound of muscle. If it was so easy to become big and bulky bodybuilder, there'd be a lot more of the guys like that. So it's just one, getting over, you're not going to turn huge just by touching a weight. And it would eventually lead to the best results for body recomposition.
A question on that for women who may be listening, because I do think especially what you said about, heavy weights can be terrifying to some of the females. I have seen women fitness trainers, I'm thinking particularly Madonna's trainer, Tracy Anderson, who uses high set numbers of repetitions and very low weights to create a very, long and lean physique. So I guess the question I'm asking is, do you really need to swing 50-pound kettlebells to get the results?
I don't think you necessarily need to be swinging the ridiculous heavy weights. I think there is a role for weight training in any shape or form. The high volume, low weight doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to get that long, lean look. A lot of that is for musculature, genetic, how the muscles connect to the joints.
Well, that's interesting. So you're basically saying everybody's body has a different peak form look. And so it may be less about the tactic that you choose and more about the physique that you're born with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's not a matter of, lifting heavier weight is going to cause you to get huge muscle bellies, and where your back is now hulking out of blazers, or touching the 2-pound dumbbells and doing reps of 50 to 60 is going to guarantee that you're going to get these lean, long, lean arms. It's just a matter of, there is a genetic, you're born with the bone structure and the way that the muscles insert. That can't be changed. What you can change, though, is the proportion of muscle to fats through nutrition and exercise. And But I think taking a step back is with going for weight maintenance is consistency. If you enjoy doing the heavy weights, Olympic style lifting, or if you enjoy doing the lighter weights, boot camp classes, or any style in between, as long as you're consistent. If you dread going to the gym and working out, you're not going to be consistent doing it. So it is finding something that you enjoy doing and you have fun with.
That's the point with everything. I always speak to my marketing clients about ensuring that the tactics that they want to do on an ongoing basis jive with what matters to them. Like, for example, a client who hates writing, I would never suggest a blogging strategy. So I think that really is key with our health, right? It's finding those techniques and tactics that work well. I mean, I know pre-pandemic, I had the green smoothie every single morning, packed with protein and at least 5 vegetables almost every day of my life. And while some people would look at it and roll their eyes and think disgusting, I mean, I really like that green smoothie. I still do. I mean, I think somehow I got out of practice because we started baking croissants in the morning or something insane like that. So I'm getting back to my kale juice. But I mean, that worked for me. And for some people, that felt really off-putting. So I do think it's always finding that personalized methodology. And one of the things that is so hard about health or marketing or finances is that people go online and sell cookie cutter approaches, and they don't always work for you. You have to find your own balance, and sometimes buying somebody else's program won't get you there.
No, and I guess to piggyback off of that, like with the health, wellness, and I would assume also with marketing, the newest, hottest trend isn't necessarily going to be the best option for you as well. Sometimes the traditional, or sometimes would be boring, maybe the thing that you need to do consistently to get you the results that you need.
That's it. That's definitely it. Well, that's good. I think hearing from you that this has been an omnipresent, challenge for a lot of patients, and even yourself as a physician and as a bodybuilder kind of normalizes it for everyone. The other big question that I received coming up to this episode was about mental health and stress and the challenges people are facing as this pandemic continues. People are facing financial burdens and job stress. And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from my clients and seeing in my own life is that for a lot of us who are privileged enough to have jobs where we can work from home because our jobs are mainly tied to a computer, it's getting increasingly more challenging to turn off. While we are home and not commuting, our days have gotten longer. I'm finding that I'm starting earlier and earlier in the morning, and I'm working later and later into the evening hours. So maybe you could talk a little bit about stress management and mental health components of how people are weathering this pandemic.
I totally understand the whole, when you bring work home and you're always on, it is so difficult to say no. To say, I can't do this right now. I need to work on me. As a direct primary care doc with patients having access to me 24/7, the days never stop. I can't be an effective care provider, and likewise for all my patients, whether they're providing care for if it's a part of the job duty that they have, whether it be as a family care provider or whatever, you can't be an effective care provider if you're not in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally. And if you understand that, it's not selfish for you to turn off the phone, turn off the computer, and one, to give yourself permission to take care of yourself would be the first step. In regards to how individuals may, I think this comes down to individualizing. For me, getting back into the gym and lifting weights is something that has been very therapeutic. It's something I enjoy doing. I actually block it on my schedule like I would for a patient visit. And I have my patients do the similar things when it comes to self-care, like a business meeting. And you wouldn't no-show for an important client or a business partner. And I would put the self-care at that same priority as you would for anything else with your career.
My favorite moments of the pandemic are when I've been able to sneak in a Peloton in between calls. And then I had this happen the other day. It was comical. I went in between meetings and then I got onto a Zoom and they asked us to put cameras on. And there I am, completely rosy cheeked, like sweaty shirt, no makeup. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is going to be so awkward. And
that's so awesome.
So awesome, right?
Yeah.
And at the 11th hour, I just said, I'll happily turn on my camera, but I just snuck in a workout and I haven't showered yet. And the really beautiful thing about that is I was greeted with so much encouragement and so much support and so much like, wow, you got in a workout. You've inspired me. I'm going to go try to take a run later. That nobody even cared about the sweaty face. They were just like, oh, you're reminding us that we can all get it in. So that I thought was an interesting change in this time, right? That you could talk about your home life and the fact that you did squish in a workout and people didn't roll their eyes and think that you were, breaking rules. They were giving you a pat on the back and saying, oh, I should do that too.
Yeah. And with that, maybe you have a busy day and your Peloton workouts, maybe you can't get a full one in, but there's even benefit of just kind of sneaking in those 5-minute mini breaks, those mini therapeutic de-stressors, whether, maybe working out isn't that major form of de-stressing that someone enjoys. Maybe it's a cup of tea, or reading a book or going for a walk or quality time with a pet. It's been particularly challenging. I have no idea how the parents who are home that are having to facilitate educating their kids while working full-time jobs and in the middle of all this.
Hard, Steve. It's really beyond.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, so if you weren't busy enough as it is, let me just throw a second job fully on your plate. That's enough to make anyone's snap from the pressure. But again, it comes down to, it's not selfish to put yourself first sometimes. And maybe you can't do a full hour workout. Maybe it's a 2-minute deep breathing session where you lock yourself in the bathroom, just to recenter yourself and take on the day, or just really finding those mini breaks if you can't take a full hour.
That's beautiful. And how about for folks that maybe aren't as open to thinking about seeking out a therapist, how do you see that relaxation or meditation helps in total body health?
The meditation and relaxation, there's been more and more studies looking at the how it actually improves health and wellness, which is really cool. We understand that it already plays a big role. But for meditation, it's something that it's vague. I don't know how many times that I went to a previous employer, my previous employments, where they'd say for the staff, to help de-stress, go meditate. But no one actually tells you how, which is kind of frustrating. And the meditation is kind of like exercise for the brain, where maybe you don't necessarily know for regular exercise how to do a squat or how to do a deadlift. And, for some individuals that have an opportunity, you hire a trainer and they could help walk you through the gym. There are some meditation experts that can help guide people through on the how to meditate, but a more affordable option that's a lot more accessible are the meditation apps like Headspace, Calm, and there's several others where they walk you through step by step how to meditate. And they have courses as short as 5 minutes where it's just a way to take a break and relax. And it's just another good way to kind of just to find some respite in a kind of a crazy, chaotic day.
That's great. So over the past few years, I've always heard these mandates. Every adult should get a yearly physical and females should get your OBGYN checkup. I think a lot of us know those baseline health protocols, but as a functional medicine physician, are there 2 or 3 different markers or tests that you feel like should be added to every American's repertoire so that they really understand where they are in their clinical health picture?
I'd say a couple things that are really helpful and beneficial for understanding one's kind of health. One would be a body composition test to really look at how much muscle, how your hydration status, how much body fat, because that gives you a lot more information than just your weight or your BMI, to get as well as if you have an opportunity to look at how much visceral fat, the fat underneath the muscle around the intestines. That tells you your body makeup, tells you a lot of how you are on a current health status overall.
How do you get that? Where does one do a total body composition test?
There's a few different means for getting these tests done, whether it be like a DEXA scan, being the probably one of the gold standards for testing, and there's a few options around the city. At my practice, I have a body impedance scanner called an InBody 570, which my patients, for every physical, they get that done. More often if they are working on body recomposition, weight management, but it provides a really a lot of detailed information on where you are currently. And I've also found it really helpful for individuals if you're going to be making yourself do some delayed gratification for nutrition or pushing yourself exercise-wise, to get the detailed information to show that you are improving, that your sacrifices are making a difference.
Yeah, because I've actually seen some pictures of folks online, right, where they're showing like, I weighed 130 here and I weighed 135 or 140 here, and I actually look better at the heavier weight because I've, created more muscle mass. And sometimes the scale can be maybe not the truest testament of your health outcome.
No, and if you put a lot of merit in the scale, the weight on the scale, it can be actually pretty demoralizing, seeing that if your goal is to lose fat, if you see the scale go up without knowing how your body's changing, that could be a lot of people just end up giving up.
Totally. Who wants to go through all that pain and forget the baking during quarantine and then, see the scale go up? It's just no fun.
No. but I do find it a really helpful tool to a piece of information to know about your health. On a lab standpoint, a lab that isn't typically checked by most traditional docs, though it used to back in the day, is called a GGT, which is a gamma glutarate transferase, where it's a biomarker in the cells that's a kind of an indirect measure of cellular damage, or how much oxidative stress or cell damage that you have going on. And it's actually really helpful to know, basically, do you need to, it's trying to think of the best way to articulate this. I find it really helpful to get a better idea of not just how a patient's organs are working, but it sometimes picks up for some patients that downplay their stress in their life. When their GGT levels are rather high, it opens up the conversation that, there may be some things we can work on and improve upon. Sometimes it's a good indicator that a person may be deficient in certain biochemicals and antioxidants like glutathione, but it's a really good non-specific screening test that for the most part can be easily added on to a lab test where they would normally check just your kidney and liver function, but provides a lot more detailed information.
Wow, that's fascinating. I've actually never heard of that, and I've followed a lot of functional medicines. Okay, so that is amazing. We've heard about body composition testing. We've heard about how sleep vitamins or vitamins associated with sleep can differ by patient. We've talked about weight gain during quarantine, about the importance of mental health and meditation. And we've talked about how this concierge medical practice can really help you get that one-on-one personalized treatment care directly from a physician. So I wanted to give you a chance, Dr. Steve, to give people your contact information. So if they live in Massachusetts and they're looking for primary care, or if they live nationally and they'd like a functional medicine consultation online, they can reach out to you. How do they do that?
Yeah, for individuals that would like to reach out via email, the best email would be at info@bostondirecthealth.com. Or they can always give a call or shoot me a text at the office phone number at 617-304-1965, or check out the website at bostondirecthealth.com for more information.
Fantastic. And on that note, if you were to give everybody one last wellness nugget before we say goodbye, what would it be?
I'd say the biggest piece is, it's give yourself permission to take care of yourself, and it's not selfish to do that.
That's beautiful. What a way to end. Happy Friday, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Steve, for your time. And make sure you follow up with your physician and check in before this flu season starts so that you can feel confident and have some space and some mental energy to do exactly what Dr. Steve said, and that's take care of yourself. Thank you, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to Momentum Magnet. We're here every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to share inspiring comeback stories. We want to hear your reviews and love getting your subscriptions on iTunes and Spotify. For show notes and past episodes, visit momentummagnet.com. I'm Karen Morales, keynote speaker, writer, and founder and CEO of Marketing Magnet, a fast-growing marketing agency for purpose-driven companies. Whether you are a business needing an agency or if you are looking for weekly tips to get ahead, sign up at marketing-magnet.com. momentmagnet.com to receive our weekly inspiration on getting more in your life and business.